with one of the finest speakers in the world today on Indian mythology. He is the core of the Leadership Summit since we saw his speech at the TED conference at Mysore and thought we must do the summit in a different way. And that is why the theme of the event is Making the Difference. He is the only belief officer. We request Mr. Ravi Sam to welcome Dr. Devdutt Pattanaik.
Good evening. I think the introduction has put a lot of pressure. I usually run to the bathroom before I give a lecture. I don't have time for that, so please forgive me if I look very impatient. What I will try today is to, for the last 14 years, I have been privileged to have a lovely hobby called mythology. And like everyone else, I began with Amar Chitrakatha and Chandamam, and that's even today one of my primary sources of information. What is interesting is, and I'm surprised why no one else has, found patterns in it. And there are fantastic patterns in mythology. And I was working, while I was studying mythology, and I'm self-taught, so it was a hobby. I was working in the corporate world. I was in the pharma industry. I worked at Sanofi Aventis, and I ended my pharma career. Before that, I was working with Apollo hospitals. So Apollo, Sanofi Aventis, and then I ended my pharma and corporate stint working with Ernst & Young as a business advisor. And while I was studying, I discovered that everything that I was doing in mythology, I would see it in real life. So every problem that I would face, I would be able to solve it very easily because of an understanding of mythology, and I started writing about it. And the writing got a good response. And as a result of that, one day, I just got a phone call from Kishore Biani. I didn't know who he was at that time, and I'm talking about 2 years ago. I just vaguely knew he had something to do with Big Bazaar. And I met him, and at the end of the conversation, I told him what I do. I thought he just wanted me to come for a guest lecture to his company. And so I was sort of trying to seduce him into agreeing to a particular thing. But at the end of it, he had offered me a job. And I asked him, what do you want me to do? And he said, I'm not sure. Just join me. And I thought this was a very strange man offering me a job to do mythology 24/7. And then he really put his money where his mouth is. He sort of gave me literally a blank check. And I wondered what this all was about, because why would a man do that? And I believed that he could see something that I couldn't. And the last 2 years has been an exciting journey of discovery. And I'll share one point today. You will notice a difference between the title which is printed on your brochure. If you look at the brochure, you'll see the title and you'll see this. And there's a difference in the title. I had first used the word, the Indian approach to leadership. But that is very presumptuous. There's no such thing in India as the model. That's absolute and permanent and perfect. In India, you have everything there are many things in India. And this is an Indian approach to leadership, which is one of the many approaches. I'm sure there are many other approaches. This is one approach, and I found this very fascinating. I would like to share it with you. Maybe you'll find it of value, maybe you'll not, but it has enriched me greatly, and I wish to share it with you. Before I begin, I'd like to explain my designation, this designation called Chief Belief Officer. What do I have to point to? Yeah. I think so. It's left to right or right to left? Or both? Yeah, okay. This is the model with which we work. You see, any business, you're all in business, and any business is a function of how we behave. Just visualize a shop, And the business depends on how the customer behaves and how the shopkeeper behaves. And it's the interaction between two people's behavior that gives you the business. So it may come up to the simple act of putting stuff on the shelf, the money that you remove from your pocket. But why does a person behave in a particular way? What motivates him to do this and not that? Why do the Americans behave in a particular way, or the Chinese behave in a particular way, or the Indians behave in a particular way, or the North Indian behaves in a particular way, and the South Indian behaves in a particular way? Behind behavior, there is something else, and that is belief. Now, the problem with belief is you can't see it. You can feel it, but you can't see it. You can't measure it. And so how do you manage it? Because we have always been told if you can't measure it, how do you manage it? So how do you manage belief? Kishorji believed that all behaviors have something behind them, and he was looking for someone who will be able to decode it. And many people do this in various ways, and I felt that mythology offers us a method to understand what people believe in. And perhaps today's presentation will be an example of that behind every behavior there is a belief. Point of intervention normally is behavior. So I intervene to change your behavior. But the question is, if I can work on your beliefs, then perhaps the impact will be greater. So that's the only difference between what this word means. It's just that, can I impact your belief? And if I impact your belief, we believe that there will be an exponential rise in your behavioral shifts. Whatever the shifts have to happen, which means it will have an exponential impact on the business. And that's where the title comes from, basically. It's called the 3B model, which we have devised on our own, just to explain what my job is all about. And the method I use is mythology, which I will use right now. So here goes. You see, ultimately, whether we like it or not, whatever people will say, business is about Lakshmi. Whatever people will say, ultimately, if I want to invest in your company, I will look at your balance sheet. I will look at your top line, at your bottom line. I will see the spread. I will see the cash flow. I will see who are your shareholders. It comes down to Lakshmi. And as we say in the company, you see, what is top line? Top line is milk. What is bottom line? Butter, makhan. So what is there in the company? Is it just full of milk, or is there rich, creamy butter? And if there is rich, creamy butter, I like the company. And it comes what we call value, these words. It's ultimately about Lakshmi. And we are the only country in the world which worships Lakshmi. So when you go abroad, everybody keeps talking, you know, you all are a land of yoga. And I keep saying, no, we are also the land which worships Lakshmi. Every restaurant, every bank, any business you go to, people actually worship Lakshmi. Because we are a land of entrepreneurs. We are the land of business. And somewhere we seem to have, we don't celebrate that. We're almost embarrassed by it. And yet, our mythology is about this wonderful goddess who is draped in red, holding a pot which is called an Akshay Patra. And she's surrounded with elephants and ocean of milk and lotuses, and everything about her is affluent and fabulous. And it's a goddess that you want in your life. I mean, you will never say, I don't want Lakshmi in my life. Everybody wants Lakshmi in their life. And that applies even to the gods. And this is the god who loves her a lot. His name is Indra. And Indra is the king of paradise. And the word for paradise is Swarga, heaven. And what's so special about heaven? You see, when you read the Purans and they talk about heaven, how do they describe heaven? What is heaven? And this is the description. They say heaven is a place that has everything. So there is a cow called Kamadhenu. You ask the cow anything, it will deliver it for you. Kama is desire. The desire-fulfilling cow is Kamadhenu. Heaven is a place where there is a tree called Kalpataru. And what is that? A tree that fulfills your wishes. Whatever you want, the tree will give you. Heaven is a place where there is something called Akshay Patra. And what is Akshay Patra? It's the cornucopia, which means it is a pot which is overflowing with milk, with food, with gold and grain. Whatever you wish, this Akshay Patra will give you. It has something called the Chintamani. And what is Chintamani? You dream of whatever you want and you will get it. Observe the pattern over here. It basically is saying extremely high return on investment. What is the investment? Nothing, just your wish. You wish it and you will get it. Who wouldn't want to be in a place like that? So you don't need people, you don't need processes, you don't need audit. You just have to imagine wealth and it will come. That's heaven. That's the land that Indra rules. This is for thousands of years, people have been talking about Swarg, which is the aspiration of the Indian people, a place where we don't have to work. And then they come to work. And they know this is not Swarga. It may be the most admired company, but it is not Swarga. And so there is a delta between what I dream for and what is actually there. And that makes me unhappy. But let's look at Indra. Look at the character, what is called Indra Charitra. What is his personality? He is described as a rather insecure god. I don't know how many of you all like some of those tacky mythological serials which come on television. I mean, with those plastic beads and those satin clothes that they wear, it is tacky. But the details are admirable. For example, no matter how tacky the serial is, Indra is always shown in a particular way. Whenever they show Indra, the story will begin with his throne shaking. Indra का जो सिंहासन होता है वो डगमगाता है. It sort of, and he's always nervous and scared and frightened. Why is he scared? Because perhaps a rishi is performing tapasya and he'll usurp his position. Or a raja is performing a yajna and he'll usurp his position. Or an asura is on the gates and he's going to usurp his position. He's always afraid that paradise will be taken away from him. So here is the king of the gods, anxious, nervous, stressed out. Perhaps he has high blood pressure, an irritable bowel syndrome, and all the things that we are familiar with. So he would feel very much at home in the corporate world. This is the king of the gods, ladies and gentlemen. And look at the narrative description of the man who rules paradise. And this is what is being told for thousands of years. He has everything, and yet he is insecure. What is he afraid of? He is afraid that Lakshmi always runs away from him. He is afraid that his wife does not actually love him. His wife loves his crown. And anybody can wear that crown, and anybody who wears the crown, she falls in love with him. She is not a faithful wife. She is always running him, he's chasing her. He's chasing her all the time. In fact, she is like the apsaras. And what does the word apsara mean? It means, apsa means water. And apsara means a water maiden. Try to catch water with your hand. You can't catch it. It will slip away. It will slip away all the time. And Lakshmi is described as chanchala, whimsical. In folk narrative, she's said to be cockeyed. You think she's coming in your direction, but she'll walk to the neighbor's house. And Indra is always afraid that she'll prefer someone else. Maybe an asura, maybe a rishi, maybe a raja. And so you have stories like Vishwamitra performs tapasya, she says, tapasya ko bhang kar do, destroy it. Or if a yajna is going on, he will steal the horse. Or the asuras are coming, he will just say, akraman. He's always nervous, always on edge. And what does he do mostly? Invariably, it will come that he seeks the help of someone, and usually it is Vishnu. He goes to Vishnu and says, get Lakshmi back for me. Get her back for me because you can get her back for me. And Vishnu always says, tathastu, so be it, I'll get her back for you. And the funny thing about Vishnu is that he is an unusually secure god.